But from that news, we are going to get back into the 5-star Grand Prix where we're going to be talking nights 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. And we are each going to be choosing a match from each night that we were going to point out what and why we love, like we did a couple episodes ago.
Structure is nice and simple, gives you guys a pretty good overview, and usually our opinions are usually pretty wildly over the place.
Yeah, all right. So for night 13, we're going to start with Mel's pick.
So yeah, night 13 aired on September 11th, and my pick was Azumi versus her team captain Utami Hayashi Shida. This match for me was a really, really fun match because you had the high-speed champion in Azumi versus that raw power of Hayashi Shida, and it was almost like Azumi took the entire match trying to outsmart and outmaneuver Hayashi Shida, but there's certain moments where it almost was a detriment to her, where Hayashi Shida would just turn around, catch her with a clothesline, and she was down. There was a DDT that Azumi managed to hit on Utami on the outside there fairly early in the match that was, I think, a bit of a more deciding factor for her. Utami did end up selling the injury from that quite a bit, and I think it helped Azumi set up for the end of the match. Utami did this thing. You're better with the names of the moves than I am with your years of commentary.
Depends on the move.
It almost reminded me of Sheamus's White Noise, where she's got him up there and she's kind of does that side what slit down. Is that what that is?
Oh, I'm.
Only she crosses
I
the leg.
I don't have it written down here, but it's one of actually I think I have. Yeah, but it's she has her kind of power slam position, then spins her into the sidewalk slam. Yeah, I actually very much like that move. It's the first time I saw it was Utami doing it, and I was like, wow, that's very different.
Yeah, there was also an incredible sequence. There was too many things to really talk about the entire sequence. All it really was this just Azumi going for something, Utami reversing it, Utami going for something, Azumi reversing it. And like I said, Utami's power constantly in those scenarios was just usually too much for Azumi. When you see them in the ring, I mean, there's a huge difference. It's not even just a little bit. Utami stands almost a head and a half above Azumi when they're standing across from each other. There was one point where Azumi was going for a super kick against Utami, and Utami actually used her momentum to feed her and set her up into the power bomb.
That was right towards the end too, I think.
At that point,
I have that noted. I have that noted as one of my last comments in that match. And she goes for the kick and then just hooks her and just lifts her and bang! I find the flow of what they did there with the catching the kick into the powerbomb very impressive.
I thought two things in that moment, that it was almost an act of desperation for Utami to just lay out Azumi and just shoot off a move as quickly as possible before Azumi could pick up something else. But also I thought it was over at that point. I hadn't really seen her kind of pull something like that out, and I was like, hey, it's the Grand Prix, why not? But Azumi pulling a surprise, pinning her captain, and what a sweet little exchange afterwards, where Utami's just smiling and laughing, knowing that she, helped her team member maintain that height and level in the tournament.
I like the little back and forth that they did after the match. But yeah, like the finish, like I was expecting Utami to win this because being the captain and being the veteran of it. But like she gets her, like she had her up in the torture rack, and Azumi getting out of that and hitting a Canadian destroyer and then a roll up and winning it. Like I was really like, whoa, where did this come from? I really did not see that ending coming.
Me neither.
Yeah. So from here, we are going to go on to my pick from night 13, and that is Sayaka Mitani taking on Suzu Suzuki. Like Suzu Suzuki, she actually missed the first couple matches on the opening weekend of this tournament, and I was just like, I was really, she'd been at work for a bunch of cards, and I was really wondering who this lady was. And when she came out, I've been impressed with her in almost every match she has been in. Just some of the stuff between both, and Saya Kamatani, like being the Wonder of Stardom champion, you got two top end people wrestling this match, and like I take an exorbitant amount of notes, like especially that night 13. I had just a stupid amount of notes. Some of this stuff, and then Saya went for a springboard. It kind of gets messed up by Caesar, and she cutters her onto the apron. Like, dude, over all these nights, the crazy apron spots from some of these matches are just insane. Yeah, and then Suzuki goes to German Saya off the apron, but it's reversed, and then Saya ends up hurricanranaing Suzuki off the apron. It was just like it's some of the crazy things they do is just nuts. But then they got back up on the apron, and then Suzuki jumps up and hits grabs her, release Germans her, and with Saya pretty much landing on her head on the floor. Like, just that was a sequence within about a minute of each other, like within a minute, and it's just like, oh my god! I literally wrote WTF on my paper. But yeah, Saya going for her, gets the fisherman driver, but misses the Firebird splash, and then Suzuki hits her what she calls the tequila shot, where it's essentially puts her behind her back and like flips her like sort of like Kofi Kingston's SOS, but but the girl's behind her and she spins with it. It's like a cartwheel with an SOS behind her back. I actually very much like that move. I didn't figure out what it was called until like 2 or 3 nights later when she won with it, and it was a tequila shot. But then in the end, Suzuki hits a German suplex, rolls through, hits a second German with a bridge, and gets the pin. Suzuki pinning the Wonder of Stardom champion, which I think lends to things after the tournament, whether there's a win here or not. She may have a shot at the Wonder of Stardom championship now.
Yes, this is something we noted in our first part of the review of the Grand Prix. There was a couple moments where even Suri, the world champion, got pins and submissions on her. So it's like, you know, there's going to be a certain amount of people thinking that they are certainly entitled to something after this tournament. You mentioned the style of Suzuki, and I think that was something that was kind of mentioned a little bit later, more specifically night 17. So we could talk about that then. But with Suzuki, I also noted she has a very unique style about her, and I'm noticing
it's power. It's the power she has is insane.
And like being a part of the deathmatch faction of prominence, I was kind of like, okay, maybe they kind of toned it down, or maybe deathmatch has a different meaning. I don't know. But we were speaking about it earlier.
Deathmatch is a deathmatch no matter where you are.
Deathmatch has stabbies and cutties no matter where you're going.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
I have noticed, particularly from night 13 on, I don't know if it's just the lighting in Nagoya or Osaka, but I am really noticing now the evidence of these death matches, both in Suzuki and in Risa Sierra, where I can see that scarring on their back, and I'm like, at first I was like, oh, does she have like some acne or glitter or something back there? No, that's wrestling glitter.
Yeah, I looked at that and going, like sometimes yeah, dude, the fact that she's already scarred up and she's 20 is crazy to me.
Yeah, and other than that, you mentioned everything that I had mentioned. That the stunner on the apron, the run off the apron, Suzuki's power bombs. I don't know what it is that she does differently than anybody else, but they just look like they hit a lot rougher. Yeah, her style is very, very unique. But I've noticed also in this second half of the tournament, both Suzuki and Risa, their personalities are starting to come out a lot more. Suzu specifically, very serious in the beginning half of this tournament. Now we're seeing her almost taking a Minoru Suzuki kind of angle on it and almost relishing in the chaos, enjoying hurting everyone. And I'm admittedly kind of living for it.
Yeah, it can be entertaining. And like at one point they were on the turnbuckle and Suzuki just grabs Sai and just bang, just headbutts her. And it just, and it looked like, I'm not 100% sure, it looked like head on head. I'm like, oh, gross. And you heard a thunk and it sounded, it made me just go, oh. And she isn't the only match she doesn't. She doesn't, like, I noticed it like 2 or 3 more times. And then the following couple nights when I watch her wrestle, it's just like, oh,
she's precious.
Yeah, it just the fact that I heard that sound off a headbutt is insane. But a wonderful match, and I highly recommend it to anybody checking out Night 13. It's just insanity.